Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Amrit Bhargav, third year law student, Sastra University, and I am extremely happy to take you through the proceedings of New Ideas for a New India, the Voice for Unity 2015, brought to you by Sastra University in association with India's national newspaper, The Hindu. By means of invocation, let us invoke the blessings of the divine with a mellifluous invocation to be rendered by Ashwath Narayanan, a 2013 graduate of Sastra University.
मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्री मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्री मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्री आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणं त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणं मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्री मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्रीं जननी पृथ्वी कामधुघास्ते जननी पृथ्वी कामधुघास्ते जनको देवः सकल दयालुः जनको देवः सकल दयालुः दाम्यत दत्त दयध्वं जनता दाम्यत दत्त दयध्वं जनता श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां.
Thank you, Ashwath. I now have the privilege of inviting Dr. S. Vaidya Subramaniam, Dean Planning and Development at Sastra University, to welcome the gathering.
Distinguished speaker for this evening session of New Ideas for a New India, guests and the intellectual audience of Chennai. I am extremely happy to stand before you again on this momentous occasion to welcome all of you. And for those who attended the first edition of New Ideas for a New India last year, you will recall the last question. The question was, where should the change happen? And Mr. Ratin Roy replied that it should happen in the government. Probably he didn't realize that what he meant later manifested as the change of the government itself in May 2014. And even before the experience, the hangover experience was complete after the serial successes in various state elections, again a major change happened a few days back in Delhi. But the similarity of all the changes is that the people were decisive, they wanted a major change. And ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot of talking. If you notice the majority of the convocation addresses in the last 3-4 years, various seminars, conferences, public discussions about this word demographic dividend, the bountiful youthful talent of our country. Of course, that is good news, but I am of the very firm opinion that if India needs to enrich the demographic dividend, then it needs to encash the democratic dividend that it has in the last 1.5 years. And it is in that context, I think, that this evening's panel discussion is so appropriate. Because unless we encash the democratic dividend, as I call it, it is extremely difficult for us to take this country to the new India that a lot of people are talking about. And there are many definitions for what a new India is all about. But I would like to rely on a sound expression of the scholar jurist, Dr. Justice Gajendra Gatkar, when he delivered the third Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Lecture for the Institute of Constitutional and Parliamentary Studies way back in 1972. He traversed various topics: political unity, constitutional unity, economic unity, social unity, role of judiciary in nationalism, promoting nationalism. And the concluding part is very essential, where he defines what New India is all about. And I would like to just quote so that I lay down the context for this evening's discussion. Justice Gajendra Katkar. Talk of New India of tomorrow, I must clearly state that tomorrow's New India cannot be integrated in compartments. We cannot be constitutionally integrated unless we are politically and socially integrated. In other words, integration is an integral, comprehensive concept, radical and dynamic in character. And unless all its facets are realized in actual life, there can be no emotional integration. Emotional integration is the ultimate goal, and the three facets of integration to which I have referred during my lectures, if properly implemented, would lead to this goal. Social inequality or economic injustice can never go together with political and constitutional inequality. This is an aspect of the matter which is apt to be forgotten by some of us. I must acknowledge that this entire speech was actually given by my scholar student, I would like to call him that way, Amrit Bhargav, who does the comparing today. And I'm sure I'm going to host this in the Sastra University website, the entire speech of Justice Gajendra Katkar for public consumption. A very profound expression of what the new India is all about and how integration can be achieved. And this is so appropriate at this point of time when the nation needs a very good definition of a new modern India and what it takes for India to move forward with the progress that many policymakers have in mind. So I strongly believe that these four dimensions, namely the political unity, social unity, economic unity, and religious unity, are the macro dimensions that need to be fixed, because the rest, the consequence of that, these are all derivative benefits. And if issues are fixed, then these derivative benefits will manifest by themselves. Now the challenge is, how do we fix this? And that is why Sastra University and the Hindu got together and conceptualized a theme like this, Voice for Unity, and decided to invite the best intellectuals to share their accumulated wisdom for this evening's New Ideas for a New India session on the theme Voice for Unity. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome this distinguished set of intellectual speakers for this evening session. All of them are intellectuals in their own right. In fact, Mr. Sitaram Yetchury called last night and expressed his inability to come. And I must very thank Mr. Chandrasekhar for benevolently accepting our last minute request, and now it is made sure that the balance of the panel is restored. I welcome all the speakers on behalf of the university and the Hindu. I welcome all the distinguished guests and the intellectual audience of Chennai, as I always call them. You see, New Ideas for a New India is a theme that Sastra University and Hindu got together and conceptualized with a singular objective of discussing topics that can move the nation forward. And in the process, I just want to end my welcome address with a very profound thought of Mr. Arun Shourie. He always says there is a lot of problems in the country, and every time the country has a problem, the solution always comes in the form of acts. So we've been passing acts, and there has never been action. So what is the use of an act without an action? And in my view, he is correct, because all these acts have been just transactional, and such transactional acts can never deliver transformational outputs. So the time has come for moving from such transactions to major transformations. Today the world celebrates, for various reasons, they celebrate February 14 for various reasons. But Chennai today celebrates the kickstart of a major initiative where we're going to move from marginal transactions to major transformations. So ladies and gentlemen, let us kickstart of these major transformations that's going to happen at Chennai this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. As a token of appreciation to the distinguished speakers for today's gathering, we would like to present a memento which symbolizes the temple town of Tanjavur and its educational edifice, Sastra University. May I now request Mr. Rajiv Lochan, CEO, Kasturi and Sons Limited, to present a memento to Mr. B.K. Chandrasekhar. I request Mr. Rajiv Lochan to present a memento to Professor R. Vaidyanathan. It is my pleasure to request Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam, Dean Planning and Development, Sastra University, to present a memento to Mr. Gopalakrishna Gandhi. Again, I request Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam to present a memento to Mr. S. Gurumurthy. I request Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam to present a memento to Mr. V. Jayant. Unification is a process, unison an experience, and unity is a feeling. Ladies and gentlemen, the time for the voices for unity to resound. May I request Mr. V. Jayant, Senior Managing Editor, The Hindu, to introduce the panelists and moderate the evening's discussion. Over to you, sir.
Distinguished panelists, a very invited and celebrated audience of Chennai, colleagues from the Hindu and Sastra, my dear friends, give me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to this joint enterprise between the Hindu and Sastra, a temple of learning. We have always been happy to associate ourselves with such institutions, and this, as Professor said, was the second edition of our joint association in this panel discussion. We are very happy to have such a distinguished panel before us, representing 4 very significant themes of unity that we wish to forge: social, political, economic. We have very distinguished people who have agreed to be here. We are particularly thankful to Professor B.K. Chandrasekhar from Bangalore, who has accepted our last-minute invitation to be with us. I think it is our long association between him and the Hindu, particularly in Bangalore, that has enabled us to come together again. We are very thankful to you, sir, for accepting our invitation. Why are we talking about religious unity, political unity, social unity, and economic unity? Because all of us want to progress, develop. If the leading agenda of the BJP-led NDA government today is development, is progress, then I think it's only on a platform of unity that this can be achieved, not through divisive means. We are very confident that we will be traversing that path to make sure that we achieve the goals of development that the Prime Minister and the government have set before us. Last year, the discussion was more on economics. This year, it is so much more widely spread so that we have a diverse range of speakers and themes to talk about. Professor Chandrasekhar is a unique combination of a politician and a gentleman. He has a doctorate and master's in law from Oxford, has had brilliant academic career, and also a very distinguished political career with the Congress Party in Bangalore. He has been, minister several times in the cabinet. He has been in charge of education. He has done wonderful reforms in the field of education. He has been the minister for IT, for BT, and he has been on the national executive of so many committees. He has drafted the party. He has also held together a common minimum program of the party. He is a consensus builder, and that is why I said it's a very rare distinction to have a politician and a gentleman. We are very happy to have you with us, sir. Professor Vaidyanathan again is from Bengaluru. I think the association of Hindu with Bangalore is becoming stronger by the day. And we are very happy that he is here, a distinguished and well-renowned economist with the IIM Bangalore. He has been a professor of finance and control, has held several academic positions, chaired several committees, and also helped so many people get their doctorates. We are very happy to have you with us, sir, and we are sure you will talk a lot about economic unity that we very badly need today. Dr. Gopalakrishna Gandhi is a unique combination. He's, what shall I say, he probably started as an administrator. I will not want to talk about his gene because that is too well known. But no, he started as an administrator, he was a diplomat, a perfect gentleman, and on top of it, he was chairman of Kalakshetra, which is probably a symbol of culture in Chennai. He has had a long association with the Hindu, and we are very happy that he will be here today. He's here today, and will talk about social unity. Mr. Gurumurthy, I don't think I should even introduce him or talk about him. He has a charisma of his own. He would like to be called a thinker, a social activist, and an auditor. On top of it, he is also a journalist. He has written extensive, repeated columns in the Indian Express, and I dare say he has a very significant invited column on the budget every year in the Hindu, which we are very happy to carry. Sir, we are very happy to be here, and as we were just discussing a few minutes ago, he is the continuum in this panel discussion because he was with us last year also. Having introduced the panel, I shall now withdraw and request them. They will be speaking in exactly the same order that I introduced them. I invite Professor Vaidyanathan. Thank you. I invite Mr. B.K. Chandrasekhar.
Namaste and all the distinguished achievers on the stage and socially concerned and some of the most brilliant minds sitting on the other side, and Mr. Vaidyanathan of the Sastra University. I must tell you first of all that in a very real sense I am an Atithi this evening. you know, an Atithi who is a person who just darts in without an invitation. That's an Atithi. Now, I was informed rather late last evening about this program, and I wasn't really keeping very well with the bad throat and so on and so forth. But the very fact that it was organized by the Hindu was enough to persuade me, even at that late hour, to try and come here and to be with you all. I didn't even, I must confess, get a clear picture of what the framework of the discussion was going to be. I did see the title and so on. I'm not blaming anyone, but what I meant was that I wish I had a bit more time to work out the territory of the arguments or the discussion and so on, but it doesn't matter. The main thing is for me to avoid descriptive material as much as possible. What I wrote down, as I said, very late and first thing in the morning today. I think what all of us should recognize right at the beginning is the importance of the constitution of this country. When President Pranab Mukherjee gave a copy of the constitution to Arvind Kejriwal, it's not as if Kejriwal hadn't read it or didn't possess a copy, but it was of utmost symbolic importance. In one friendly gesture of gifting a book, he sent a message to all political parties that our ultimate touchstone, even the beginning, but the ultimate one, should be the Constitution and nothing else. I think right at the beginning I should also mention that what President Mukherjee meant was that all political parties must let the parliament and the state legislatures function first of all. Now, no matter what party I belong to, I've always held this belief. What's the point of legislatures and the parliament? They're in fact meant to be talking shops. You can quarrel without, of course, throwing chairs and mics and so on, but keep arguing, agreeing, disagreeing. So that is terribly important. And by the same token, we swear by the rights and the guarantees and the freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. A whole lot of them, and all of you are mostly familiar with that. But in particular, Article 14, which speaks of equality, Article 19, absolutely fundamentally important, freedom of speech and expression, extending to all citizens and to the media. There is no separate guarantee to the media in this country, in the Constitution, but this is good enough. And Article 25, freedom to profess and practice on faith and so on. The sudden emergence onto the center stage of what's called Ghar Wapsi, the recent attacks on churches, whoever did it, I'm not going into the merits of that, in Delhi, has brought Article 25 into sharp national and international focus. It drew the attention of US President Obama, as everybody knows now, and an editorial in New York Times, which typically was reproduced in the Hindu, and I don't think by any other newspaper, on that speech by President Obama, and comments from several other people and so on. And when President spoke in the Syria fort in Delhi, he made a reference to that. He explicitly referred to Article 25. He mentioned it, actually. And when he went back to Washington, he invoked the name of Gandhiji. And he said if the Mahatma was alive today, he would be shocked by some of the incidents that have been taking place at an alarming regularity in your country. And then proceeded to say that once you stop that, there is no limit to the potential that India has in terms of growth. You know, I suppose that's the spirit of this meeting, that despite all the argumentation, the quarrels and fights, there's still a common denominator. There has to be. And that's what one has started to probe now. I personally think that Prime Minister Narendra Modi should initiate a series of quiet discussions. He might have done so. Sri Gurumurthy and others might be aware of it, but I think it's terribly important that he loses no time before people take positions, all parties, and initiates discussion with non-BJP governments, opposition parties, social activists, intellectuals, and of course within the party, obviously, on this and related issues. Editorials and leading print media have asked the government and the party to rein in leaders who provoke doubts, restlessness, even fear in the people. This is perhaps easier said than done, given the aggressive postures of several units of the Sangh Parivar that have taken. Easier said than done, but certainly doable. And even a couple of MPs who tried to justify Ghar Wapsi became a bit worrying. I think one of them was a minister in the government, the lady. There was, of course, a humorous side to that. And this is a wonderful thing about this country. And, you know, in the media, they kept repeating or printing the tweets and so on. And one of the tweets said, "Send back Sakshi Maharaj," after his statements, and thereby you will fulfill two important programs, namely Ghar Wapsi and Swachh Bharat. You know, it's not necessarily bad or insulting or anything, but you know, there's this touch of humor, but there is also a touch of pain in this whole thing. I saw hundreds of them. Some of the most important conditions that need to be fulfilled in our effort to fashion political unity, apart from what I said, including my party, every opposition party must let the parliament function. That is a supreme condition, without which I think people are helpless. They don't know what to do, where to go. But other conditions to fashion out a political unity would be to retain and cherish the widely accepted concept of the idea of India. I'm aware that there are lots of interesting, perhaps even justifiable critique of that idea written by different people. But the essential components are the need to recognize the diversity that characterizes India and to build a more inclusive society by adopting policies, as indeed our Constitution does in some ways, policies that explicitly recognize cultural differences. There's nothing wrong in that, nothing wrong in that at all. I've tried to look at several other countries and their constitution, their political system, their actual, where there are multicultural entities, like, for instance, Canada. There are several other countries also. And what you see there is that they have come around to explicitly recognizing cultural differences and giving them some position. So it's much better for them to accommodate those differences. The cultural diversity has been here with us and will no doubt grow. And I see it even written, one unified state, Karnataka, in my own state. Is so amazed. My colleague, Professor Vaidyanathan, is aware of it. He has been in Bangalore a long time. There are people in some parts of Karnataka demanding separate statehood. You know, I think one result is that they felt ignored. Elections are more important probably than practice in public policy activity. Now that the BJP is in full-fledged power in Delhi, they'll have to reckon with the Constitution of India, which does not recognize the culturally and numerically dominant Hindus as constituting the Hindu nation. Any attempt to alter its basic feature might ultimately result in conflicts of different kinds. Recognition of cultural identities as diversity did not result in a Khalistan, in a Gorkha land, or any such entities in the south. There were lots of talk that it might happen in this very land, but it never did. It won't. A terribly important facilitator, in my view, of forging any kind of political unity is genuine consultation with opposition and other groups on matters which will alter the important administrative organizational platforms, or changes which will be perceived not necessarily at the ground level as a result of practice, but it can be perceived as targeting or showing communities in poor light. For example, the first one, abolition of planning commission and the advantages of Niti Aayog were not really properly discussed in the country. Again, I'm not going into the it may make a lot of sense, the new format, it may. But I think it should have been discussed very widely, and unfortunately it wasn't done. Chief Minister were invited to one of the NDC meetings and they were just informed of that. I spoke to our own Chief Minister and said, tell me the truth of exactly what happened there. He said nothing. So I don't see why there is any problem. One takes a decision and it's made known to other people. They know that it's a fait accompli. But you might as well get into some discussion, genuine discussion, to find out what the difficulties are with the new format. Or declaration by an RSS ideologue, even before Mr. Modi was sworn in as PM, I think 2-3 days prior to that school textbooks would be revised in the light of our past history, achievements and so on. Now, I'm not here referring to the genetic modulation or plastic surgery that apparently existed 400-500 years ago or 1,000 years ago in our country, etc. These are discussed by scientists and so on. So I don't really talk about that. But things like nominations to the University Grants Commission, Indian Council of Historical Research, Central Board of Film Certification, of which I was myself, and there is a write-up there which one might as well note now by a journal which is not unfriendly to the government and so on and so forth. For instance, on the CBFC, a man I have respected a great deal, Mr. Arun Jaitley, one of the intellectuals in BJP. I've met him a couple of times. I really respected him. He had said in 2010, criticizing the UPA government for its culture of interference with the censor board. These are his words, not mine. But now what's happened? The Central Censor Board, it's not actually called a censor board in the legislation, as you know, it's called the Central Board of Film Certification, has 4 members of the BJP, a Dalit activist from the RSS. All of that is okay. But the chairman now, Mr. Neelani, who's been speaking a lot, he had produced Har Ghar Modi, a song lionizing then Prime Ministerial candidate in the run-up to the Lok Sabha elections, and so on and so forth. We could easily avoid these things. And a word with other people, you can accommodate people there. I mean, there are brilliant minds in the BJP as much as anywhere else. And we have one sitting example right here. We do nothing but respect them. But the process is as important as the end product. That's what I mean. If you want to infuse confidence in the people. And there was an incident in Karnataka recently, and I waited for more than 2-3 weeks, and I had to intervene a little bit on this CBFC issue. I think we should take care that it doesn't become unseemly. I'm not objecting to the authority of the elected government to appoint these people. I'm not speaking technically about it. But consultation, taking people into confidence, groups of people and political parties will help. I think on secularism also, it's going to come into the center stage again. You are aware of the preamble to the Constitution controversy recently. I want to leave that alone. But the question is, what kind of form of secularism can political parties agree on? I'm not shifting the burden entirely on the government or the BJP or anything. I think all parties should think, given the change that has occurred in this country and throughout the world, how do we deviate justifiably from the Nehruvian brand of socialism, secularism, and so on? I think it's possible. Modifications everywhere. What do we do? Where do we go? The Prime Minister, to be fair, has so far not advocated any idea that would fly in the face of secularism. He has not. Or on the related question of appeasement of the minorities. These are issues that are bound to come up. There's no point pushing them under the carpet. I think the next round of discussions we should take up, in my view, in my submission, one or two specific issues like that. All the dimensions and implications and so on of these things. The Prime Minister should ideally take a position that he would look upon the state, in the words of an academically respected British thinker, he should look upon the state as a mediating influence between diverse cultural, religious, and ethnic groups of this country. This would be a worthwhile enterprise. I think one of the things we need to sort out for political unity. Lastly, given the overpowering presence of Mr. Modi by his individual merits as Prime Minister in the cabinet and in the party, one is sometimes reminded of the heyday of Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, no doubt a great statesman, Vajpayee as Prime Minister. Some in BJP had suggested, and I've checked my facts twice on this, some in BJP actually suggested that the emerging new India required changes in the rules of the political game. This is what they suggested at the time, and we're hearing some of that even now. Rules of the political game. Personalization of governmental power and policies in the name of an individual can be absolutely dangerous. But something happened. It's fairly widely discussed then, when there was this sort of personalization, because A.B. Vajpayee was larger than life size, emerged. And the BJP thought we could capture state power in the next 5 or 10 years, provided we load everything into the personality of Mr. Vajpayee. Whether he liked it or not is another matter. I don't think he would have done. But they said personalization of governmental functions, policies, etc., in terms of an individual is not wrong. And what worried me was that the middle class was perfectly okay with that at the time. They did not bat an eyelid before raising the issues. We say that education is the ultimate panacea for everything, and it makes people think, question, etc., etc. I refer to a survey in 1990s. A survey was conducted in Madras, Mumbai, Delhi. I'll finish in 2 minutes, Mr. Jain. Yes, sir. A survey was conducted in Madras, Bombay, Delhi, and Calcutta and Bangalore. It revealed that progress in India now required a dictator. And this is reported in the Times of India, 28 December 1993. Now, apart from the elections in Delhi now the other day, where contrary to predictions and the discussion in the NDTV dialogues and so on and so forth, a section of the middle class crossed over to Aam Aadmi Party. For what reasons, they still don't know. They had said the very rich voted them, but given the percentage of votes and so on, I think a large section of the middle class crossed over. But did this inspire that we require less of democracy, more of decision making? You remember the terminology used in the Lok Sabha election campaign? We need a strong Prime Minister Advaniji had said himself, again a man for whom all of us have very high respect. Advaniji had said, only a strong Prime Minister, a strong Home Minister in Delhi can control all the terrible things that happen in Jammu and Kashmir. I did a bit of research, got all the statistics from the Home Ministry for the time that Advaniji was Deputy Prime Minister and Home Minister. I didn't bring it here. I wrote about it. But the actual number of soldiers who had died, the actual number of civil casualties, etc., there were 4 or 5 categories, all had gone up during that period. Now, I'm not at all saying that it was due to Advaniji or Vajpayee or that government, not at all. It's a silly oversimplification if I did. Likewise, for anybody to say that a strong person there would achieve this, I think is a false promise that we make to the people. Though that was the campaign in 2014. There were then in the 90s a call for purification of India also. That's happening a little bit now. But more important one, how do we prevent the capture of state organs by the industry? Industry is a legitimate partner of growth in any society. Certainly here, we need it. But surveys done well before 2010, that is to say during the second government, people were already suggesting that there's a fantastic influence, disproportionate influence of capitalization. And here is an expert who knows that. 80% of the capitalized market were controlled by a handful of people at that stage. Okay. So we don't want that. I mean, different expressions are used by economists like crony capitalism and so on. I mean, it's used in the West a great deal. We didn't do it here. So that is another thing which personally worries me. I think the policy making should squarely lie with the elected government, whoever is the government. That's the only insurance we have against civilian control of the direction of this country. So I think a certain initiative from the Prime Minister himself now, and then a few other statesmen within the BJP and so on, a series of dialogues must be initiated now without any fanfare, without any song and dance, but you can achieve results. You know, the fact that he spoke up, summoned the police commissioner in Delhi the other day because of the attack on 5 churches in 2 months or whatever. It reported everywhere throughout the world in all newspapers that the Prime Minister broke his silence. He probably had good reason. If there was a Home Minister, let him talk about that, you know. Why should the Prime Minister and Chief Ministers come up for everything? But I think that, in my view, is essential. The fact that BJP has got a resounding majority is something which everyone ought to respect. But that is not the be-all and end-all of this society. And the new generation, which Professor Vidya Subramaniam referred to, the demographic benefit that we need to gain and so on. In Karnataka itself, there are 38.5 lakh first-time voters in this last election. And their aspirations, we should try and talk to them and see how to take it along reasonable paths, but absolutely within the constitutional framework. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now you will agree with me why I call him a politician and a gentleman. We don't have such people even in the Rajya Sabha today. And I think he really hit the nail on the head when he referred to Article 25, the Planning Commission, and the CBFC, of the Central Board of Film Certification. I think these issues will stand out in the discussions, not just here, but in the public domain. Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Vaidyanathan.
Thank you, Mr. Jain. Yeah. And Of course, at the outset, my sincere thanks to the Hindu and the Sastra University. And Jayant was mentioning that each one will get 20 minutes. He doesn't know. We professors, we measure it as 90 minutes. One session, actually. And he's a erstwhile colleague. He's a retired professor from our institute. So he brought out some interesting points. But I would focus on the economic side, primarily from first part, global, what's happening, how it's advantageous to us. Second part about our own situation. To put it very interestingly, there is a huge amount of tectonic shift which is taking place in the global economic scene. In a nutshell, if you go back to 1990, which is not very far away, the G7, the original G7, now it has become G20, but earlier it was 53% of the global income. The emerging markets, primarily 5 of them, India, China, Brazil, Indonesia and South Africa, they had something like 32%. Now if you look at the number 2015, 2014 to be precise, the emerging markets have got 52% and the G7 has got only 34%. And that is the nature of the global economic crisis. G7 is a significant decline. Not only that, these numbers are from IMF, very important, because in India, some IIM professor says nobody is going to accept it, right? It is from International Monetary Fund, because our reference point is typically Washington or London, right? Of course, sorry, Rangarajan is here, Moscow or Peking, okay? So I shouldn't leave it out, right? So our reference point is always outside, Nowadays I don't write many things. I write and send it abroad and ask them to send it back. Then only people will, because who will listen to a professor from IIM? A plumber from New York will have more weightage or importance, right? Anyhow, this is what has happened actually. The crisis is the emerging markets have grown. Not only that, globally it is accepted this is not going to be a easily changing crisis. What it is told is, what started in 1820 as the major development of these current G7 countries is slowly coming to an end in 2020. This is what is happening actually. The entire power is shifting to China and India. That is why China can openly come out and assert Asia for Asians, and then try to build up its situation. So there is a phenomenal amount of global shift. And one of the, so many reasons, we need not go into that, the G7 crisis. One of the major reason is they are phenomenally indebted. The level of debt is totally not in an agreeable form at all. Actually, day before yesterday, US had the privilege of crossing the 17 trillion debt with a sort of a GDP of 16.7 trillion. All the countries are highly become indebted. In the financial jargon, we call it in terms of high leverage. And 3 types of debt, country debt, consist of, one is the sovereign debt. Sovereign debt nobody cares because you can always print notes. Everybody has access to respective countries. So open it up and then, inflation and that's okay, but sovereign debt. Corporate debt, many of us know, finally it lands on the banks, that's all. Corporates are never going to, and corporates will move around and because the reason is very simple, sir. In financial jargon, if you borrow 40 lakh from a bank for a flat or a thing, I have to be worried about EMI. Every month with my wife I have to sit and how to organize the EMI. If I borrow 400 crore, who is going to worry? I think, right? The GM of the bank will ring up my wife and ask how is professor, how is his health and all that thing. So bank, the corporate debt is also not of much worry. But the major worry in all the G7 countries is the household debt. Household debt is totally at unacceptable levels. Households have forgotten the 6-letter word called savings. Nobody saves there. phenomenal amount of debt, educational debt, consumer debt, and the debt on your own house itself. The level of borrowing by households is sinking all these countries. It's not going to be easily sorted out in the next 1 or 2 years or 3 years or anything like that. So, great advantage is there in terms of economics. From the point of view of their approach is it possible for East to save and West to consume? Now, this model has been practiced for the last 15 years. That is, one group is saving, other group is consuming. But this is not it's not very easy to sustain it for a long period of time. Second is, they feel that they have a huge amount of money available in the form of these pension funds and other type of funds. Whether those funds can be used in the emerging market, primarily India and China, and earn something, and then they can, and that is also not going to be a easily sustainable type of a model. So the advantage is for the Asian situation, and it is expected sooner or later lot of institutions have to undergo changes. Financial parlance, IMF, World Bank, maybe even United Nations. India and China has to take a lead in terms of rebuilding many of these institutions to suit the requirement of the emerging scenario. As far as our domestic is concerned, there is a huge amount of pent-up energy has been opened up, and a significant amount of growth has taken place in the last 10-15 years if you see. But where has it come from? Interestingly, it has come from what you may call partnership and proprietorship firms. What is called the small businesses. Different names are given. And very unfortunately, sometimes they are also called residual or unorganized sector. There is a flower vendor next to my house, vegetable vendor. She comes around the morning 7 o'clock actually. She comes in her TVS 50. And she has half a truckload of material on that two-wheeler. I don't know how she manages. She brings it. Starts her shop at 7. Up to night 9 she sits and does it. Every day, day after day, 365 days of the year. Maybe 2-3 days she takes off. I was wondering, where does she come in our economic system? Somewhere she has to come, right? She has to be reflected. I probed and did some research and found out from the Central Statistical Organization's fact book, 1000-page book, that she is called unorganized sector. The lady does work till night 9, day after day, understand all the customer requirements. Sometimes she used to tell, sir, this bendika you don't take, this lady's finger, this is not good, come tomorrow. That level of, and some people credit, monitoring, everything she does. And that increased my, what you may loosely call, blood pressure. She being called unorganized. This I call as terminological terrorism. There are a lot of terrorism. This is one type of terrorism. What does it mean? By unorganized, we are trying to say that they are disorganized, which it is not true. She is much better organized than many multinational companies. Let me tell another interesting thing. After 10 pages, I went through the document, Central Statistical Organization. I'm an original student of Mahalanobis statistics. I saw there, government is classified as organized. That made me really, this lady is unorganized. Government is, all government, municipalities, state government, central government is called organized. So this whole thing is very funny actually. They constitute 50% of our economy. Let me repeat it. They constitute 50% of the economy. And many a time they are called residual sector. That is something, only in India, 50% will be called residual. Right? Nowhere else you will find residual. In US context is agreeable because they are 6 or 7%. These partnership, proprietorship, small businesses. Here it is 50%. How can you call them as residual? Right. Now, not only that, they are the fastest growing. If you look at last 15-year data, they are the engines of growth. Primarily the growth has come, they are both in manufacturing as well as in services. More dominant in services, your retail trade, your restaurant, transport, all type, and plumber, fitter, painter, carpenter, all these services. And all of them have grown anywhere between 8 to 11%. real growth rate, what we call in our jargon compounded annual growth, CAGR. It's a phenomenal thing. But they suffer significantly, and that is one of the reasons why we should focus for the future. They suffer from corruption and lack of credit. We talk so much, all government talk so much about inclusive growth and all that thing. Look back the statistics. In 2000, they had more than 50% of the banking system. 2012, they had 30%. They are fastest growing, 50% of the economy, but their credit available to them is coming down. That is the first point. Second is they are suffering from the issue of corruption, what I call womb to tomb corruption. That is from birth certificate to death certificate. Birth certificate, I didn't have to obviously pay anything. And in those days, there was no birth certificate also. SSC certificate was considered as a existence certificate. There is nothing called a birth certificate. Death certificate, of course, my spouse has to run around, I'm sure. The whole thing is a spectrum. So doing a small business, we say ease of business. It is the most important thing is the level of corruption which is pertaining at that. In terms of Shops and Establishment Act, in terms of Food and Adulteration Act, you must read some of these acts. If you go by Shops and Establishment Act, all shops in Karnataka, I'm sure in our state also, in this state also, should be closed. You cannot follow it. Sunlight should be there, place to sit should be there, rat should not be there. And then we should have a clean surrounding. I buy my bread with open drainage. I give cash like that, he gives bread like this. He is covered by Shops and Establishment Act. And how do we implement all these acts? We don't implement any of them. Periodically, Babus go and collect money from them. That's all. So many of these economic related regulations are tools for extortion. Let me repeat it. Tools for extortion by the. It is not actually to regulate. It is not actually to regulate. I was in a committee, I asked, how many people have died eating food in this, what are called in Bangalore, fast food restaurant? I told nobody has died. We have a huge Food and Adulteration Act. So stomach problem can come even if I eat at home. Right? So Food and Adulteration Act is another tool. Periodically people go and collect money because it has a draconian power. You can shut down that restaurant or a hotel immediately. And that is the nature of the power, and that is what these people are suffering. The third point is, we all, every day morning we get up and we chant like our, what you call our Vishnu Sahasranamam, or we chant FII, FDI, FII, FDI. Very important for us. And in Delhi somebody told, sir, you must have a quote, otherwise FII may not come into India. Sir, you are smiling too much. All are very tensed. But you will be surprised to know, last 15 years data, every year it has never exceeded 6 to 7% of our investment. 93% of our investment comes from our domestic savings. And domestic saving again 90% comes from household saving. Nobody talks about it. Single largest cause for the growth of this country is an average Indian housewife. Nobody else. I always maintain, seriously, I told this to some ministers also, erect a statue of a Indian housewife from Ernakulam to or Kottayam to Kamrup. One lady standing like this. Who is she? Below that you write reason for our growth. Not 1 or 2%. And it is extremely difficult in the context of inflation and in the context of income not matching to the inflation. Savings. 90% of the saving comes from households. And all our domestic investment is from domestic, significantly from FI and FD is important. It's something like a pickle for curd rice. All of you understand, right? And we shouldn't convert that into curd rice itself. Pickle is required. It's some, at that, topping it, like, we shouldn't, but we have become, you open up any, what you call this, pink paper. Ours is not a pink paper. Good. you will find that every television channel, business channel, everywhere, it is made to appear that FII and FDI is the only thing which is sustaining this country, which is not true. And now there are a lot of seminars conducted by people how to reduce the Indian housewife from saving, how to make her spend. That is the main objective now. They are not spending. You see, the G7, one of the fundamental problem is they began to measure happiness in terms of what is the retail sale every week. That is the starting point of their problem. They measure every week, they announce it, Walmart or various other shops, so much they sold. If it is lesser, they feel bad. If it is more, they feel everybody is nice. So you have to buy. And there, if you go to US any house, if you go into their the basement, you will find a retail shop there actually. Because if you buy 50 liters of this shampoo, one pencil will be given free. They go by car some 100 miles and collect that and bring it and keep. This whole retail revolution is a big humbug, I am telling you. What is retail revolution? My student asked me, one sentence I will tell you. Bring the retail shop inside your home. Retail revolution is over. That's all. What they call in terms of local shops or what we call Kirana shop, right? That's what is. But that is not going to happen here because most of these small flats, there is not even space for people to sit inside, leave alone, bringing all those items and keeping inside. It's not possible. Many people will buy in the morning and evening we will go and buy once more. That's all. If I ask my wife to do something like my grandmother, 100 kg of rice to buy and keep it inside, she will laugh at me actually. 1 kg, half a kg, that's more than. Again we will. So it's not going to. So the saving part of it now want to be converted into consumption. There is a seminar actually. I was also wrongly invited for that seminar. How to encourage women to spend. I told it is never going to happen in India. They were shocked. Why? He told 32% is our saving approximately. 90% of it comes from household. Why they will? First, we don't have a general social security. If you are in Denmark or Norway or any other country, even in US, at the time of retirement, you will get a check. What is called the government social security check. Here, they may ask you, not any. And 85% are self-employed in this country. Not all are government employees or corporate employees. 85% is on their own, which means they have to take care of their own senior age when they become 70 or 75. There is nothing called a retirement man. Same thing for health. Again, there is no generalized health coverage. Particularly if you are running your own shop, if you are running your own automobile or shop, if you are running your own truck, all these things, there is nothing. Third is education. Lower you go, higher is becoming the cost. UKG and LKG is very, very expensive. I am telling you, I am teaching at IIM. Some UKG is becoming more expensive than IIT and IIM. Not joking. Very expensive. And banks don't provide loan for schools. It's something I can't understand the logic at all. IIT, IIM they provide. That means I was the bank board, I asked the question, foundation you don't give money. Third and fourth floor you want me to build, how do I do it? Automatically. So education is extremely critical both in India and China. And women are, whether one likes it or not, obsessed about their children's education. In both these countries actually. Which means they have to have money and lot of lower level donation and other thing you have to give in cash, not in check or anything. Everybody knows about it. Nothing top secret or anything. So for that also they have to save enormous amount of money. My colleague at Atlanta asked why women are so obsessed about education of your children. I told very simple reason, sir. In India, every woman wants her children to be better than her husband. Very simple. There is because this fellow cannot be rectified anymore. And I gave him an example. It's like an ambassador car. You can neither use it nor sell it. Nothing can be done. So how to take vengeance on him? Get your children, do more, do better. That's all. And many of them do not. The other day I asked a boy what class you are studying. His father responded, 6th standard, sir. Boy told, Appa, I am already 8th standard. He doesn't even know the level to which his son is. But you ask the mom, she will tell you what was the assignment given yesterday, who are her friends, whether he has done rightly or wrongly or not. So women are extremely worried and concerned about the education of their children, which means they are willing to spend. Unfortunately, in India today, price is equated with value. So if a school charges you more, it is considered to be a better school. So that they have to save. The fourth is what is called samskaras. All the marriages of friends, marriages of relatives, death of relatives, birth of children, these are too complicated actually. Some people, have all this, they gave one ring for our brother-in-law's thing, so we have to give one, bangle back and all that, equating. And the lower you are, you spend more for these things, I find. My plumber or my electrician immediately rushes to on hearing about a death or something. And he spends a lot of money in proportion to his level of. The better off segment may not nowadays, he may send an SMS, very sorry to hear you have passed away. That's all. Nothing more than that. But the lower classes still follow samskaras, for which also you require money. There is no, you can't ask about tax deduction or anything. You have to pay. So these are reasons which are not going to change immediately. For the next decade at least, India will continue to save, and Indian housewife will be one of the major saving tools. But these non-corporate, I'll take another 3 minutes, non-corporate sector growth has also fueled a very interesting type of a thing in the country. The southern portion, I am not going into all the detail, whoever is interested can write to me, I can tell them my website, you can read. Southern and western portion has seen phenomenal amount of growth due to various reasons. We will not go into that. So there is a massive amount of migration taking place from the east and northeast to south and west. Today, for instance, in Bangalore, if you have to get a plumber, a carpenter, nobody from Karnataka. I get people from Bihar, Orissa. We wanted to paint our room. Finally, my wife learnt some Bhojpuri. That's all happened. Nothing more than that. Huge amount of migration is taking place. And specialized sometime. Northeast mean they come for beauty parlor, spa and other. Plumber mean mostly Orissa. Kendrapara, one district in Orissa provide 60% of the plumbers to this country. And Bihar, Darbhanga, electrical. I asked him, he jokingly told, you have never seen electricity. So we are good in, we are good electrician. Bihar has never seen electricity. So they are good in electrician. They come. I am sure here also, because the other day Madurai, I was sitting with one professor and talking to him. Madurai in a hotel, he asked the boy, Garam Pani Lao. I asked, what is this happening? In Madurai we are sitting and you are, sir, that is the language only. So here also I am told huge amount of labor is from other parts. Massive. It's not one or two. One offshoot of this unity may be, in 15-20 years I am sure, Tamil Nadu people will also speak Hindi. At least working knowledge type of thing. The way it is, the shift in Karnataka and other places also, massive shift is taking place. Now, we will go back to the original point. The decline of the West, which explicitly started around 2007, has also given rise to the West worried about tax havens and illicit money. Concern today is because of their economic crisis. In 2002 or 2003, if you had talked about illegal money of India abroad and anything, nobody would have given a chance to you. They were called actually offshore financial centers or modern financial centers. These were the names given. See, the West also has a very uncanny knack of shifting the names. That time they were called modern financial centers. Today they are called illicit tax havens. That's the word used because they don't like it. So this is where the crisis made them to look at this. Germany and France are in the forefront. Germany, what they did was, they have a small adjacent country, small, the size of this campus perhaps, Liechtenstein it is called. There the bank is there where Germans used to keep all their illegal money. Germany knew about it, not that it's a secret or 50s, 60s, 70s. But when the crisis started, huge amount of pressure built up. They hired their intelligence agency and then stole the data from that bank, from that Liechtenstein bank. They had something like 3,000 and odd names, and of that, finally, 700 names were non-Germans. They published it, another thing. Liechtenstein was shouting that, you should not do it, we are a sovereign country. And Germany told, just keep quiet. Germany is a big gorilla vis-a-vis Liechtenstein. He told, you stole our money, we stole your data, so it cancelled it. So nothing. So the topmost man in Germany, the German Post, Deutsche Post it's called, his name was on the first. Then a lot of political people, these are all in 2007-8. Then the finance minister told, this data is available for anyone. Anyone can come and take it. So Australia sent somebody, Sweden sent somebody, US sent, one country did not send anybody. So I was puzzled. You know which country it is, right? Yeah. I was puzzled because something is given free and Indians not in the queue. You know how it is? Possible. That fellow is telling we are giving it to you free. I have been doing work in this area for quite some time. So I wrote him, you give me the, he told, sir, you are a professor. We cannot give. Only sovereign state we can. Nobody else we can. Then what is the second? I wrote to all the MPs, ministers, all the people. Email is much easier nowadays, not like olden days. You send a, that this we have not sent anybody. Fortunately, due to Gurumurthy's effort, Advani took it up on a serious basis that time. And then there was pressure and other thing, and we got the, then we asked through our embassy and other thing, we got the names. Then the second one is this French, that is also stolen data, HSBC at Geneva and Zug actually. French government gave that stolen data to us. Point I want to stress is, if you want to have significant and sincere economic unity, you cannot have large number of amount of funds kept by Indians abroad illegally, because that gives a huge credibility gap. I earn honestly, I pay my taxes, I am here. Okay, domestically, yes, there are quite a number of people who avoid taxes, but there are methods and mechanisms. Domestic, if you don't pay taxes, it's a no confidence in the government. If you keep money abroad, it's no confidence in the country itself. It's treason. There is a difference between the two. Many people confuse, sir, you are not paying tax. He is okay, he doesn't believe in. And if he doesn't pay taxes domestically, he is paying corruption. Together, he is paying 15%, I can demonstrate to you. Plus 15, 30%. Each of the small business people accused don't pay taxes. If you take his, what is paid as corruption, what is paid as tax rate, together, it's more than 30%. So it's not, but abroad is of very, very important. And so far, the data what we are talking about, all this is stolen money, stolen data, which has come to us on a platter from two foreign governments. Nothing to do with our effort. So time has come, if you want to really significantly make people proud of our economic situation and enhance credibility, to get this money back. And everybody asks me, what is the estimate, sir? What is the PIN number? What is the phone number of the fellow? Sir, black money, sir, first of all, I can't give you. No, you, unless you give all that. Point is very simple. The estimate is anywhere between 500 billion to 1.5 trillion. Let's be very clear. Other than that, there are a lot of money kept in the form of pearl, gems, diamonds in various lockers all over the world, by Indian. Not now, from the 30s, from the 40s, from the 50s. People have kept it, and some of those people have not even bothered to get it back. So if you want to have a significant economic unity, domestically we are doing really well, irrespective of this, nothing to do with argument about this government or that government. Because our people are entrepreneurial, phenomenally entrepreneurial. Maybe less than 10th class, it doesn't matter. And actually there is a interesting correlation. If you are less than 10th class, you are much more entrepreneurial. If you are MBA, then you become employee of those people. So that is what happened. So I was coming from France once, long time before. One of these Tripur exporter was also traveling. I was traveling cattle class. He was traveling in the business class. So we were talking. I asked him, sir, the standard argument, 7th pass or 8th fail, one of those things. where they say 8th fail is better than 7th pass is never settled. Anyhow, I asked him, sir, you don't know English, how do you manage? He's an exporter with that time 1200 crore turnover. You do not know English, how do you? He told, Tambi, in France, avangulukku English theriyadhu. So that is how we do that. Huge amount of entrepreneurship is there in the country. We don't have to have any qualm or worry. What is to be done? Just get out of their shoulder. That's all. Should government help them? If it is possible, help them. If not, just leave them in peace. That is the greatest possible help which is possible. My grandma always used to be in the kitchen when somebody goes to say, and I will help you another thing. The greatest help you can do is go and sit in the drawing room. I will take care of things. She was so proud of her thing. So same way, government, if it can help, nothing like that. Otherwise, the entrepreneurial spirit of this country will bring phenomenal amount of economic unity, which is seen now in terms of our growth rate, in terms of our migration patterns, in terms of significant amount of Indians are doing extremely well in other parts of the world, not just in India only. In in Holland, Antwerp, diamond used to be controlled by Jews, 80%. Today it is Gujaratis doing 80% control and 20% is by the Jews. Wall Street Journal wrote a center page article. First time in the history of the world, Jews have been defeated without violence by the people. It's a small community actually, Jain community from Gujarat. So our entrepreneurial spirit is phenomenal. Our ability to have economic unity is intrinsic. It is not to be something which has to be told or anything. But what is required is a conducive atmosphere to be created by the state. That is what I would like to put forward. Thank you.
I had no heart to tell him that he had overstepped his time. That is how much we enjoyed it. And behind all that sense of humor, there were hundreds of home truths which we should take back home and think about seriously. May I now invite Dr. Gopalakrishna Gandhi to address.
பெரியோர்களே எல்லாருக்கும் நமஸ்காரம். சாஸ்திரா என்கிற பேர் பல பெயர்களின் முதல் எழுத்தே எடுத்து தொகுத்து ஒரு ஆக்ரோனிமான பேர். இருந்தாலும் சாஸ்திரான்றது பேரில் ஒரு ஒலி இருக்குது, ஒரு ஒளி இருக்குது. அது ரொம்ப ஒரு சாஸ்திரோத்தமான பேர் மாதிரி ஒரு மாறிவிட்டுருக்குது. அந்த சாஸ்திராவோட ஹிந்து பேப்பரோட ஹிந்து சாஸ்திரம் ரெண்டும் சேர்த்து விட்டால் இங்கே நான் என்ன பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன்னு எனக்கு தோன்றுது. That is a formidable Vedic combination which I cannot hope to unravel without feeling extremely nervous, shall I say. I wish I had spoken before Professor Vaidyanathan, because after all that I may wish to share with you, we would need a strong dose of humor. Listening to Professor Vaidyanathan, I was reminded of what has been said of Charles Lamb. He laughed in order not to weep. Every single thing that Professor Vaidyanathan shared with us, with the jollity of humor, carries within it a great sadness. I have been asked to speak today on social unity. The stage itself says everything that can be said about social unity. Where is the woman of India on the stage? She does not need a statue. She needs a place under the sun. Where is the Muslim on the stage? I notice a tremulous silence in the hall. But it is a fact I want to share with all of you. If I am to speak on social unity, I must ask, why is it that the biggest minority in India, created by the manipulation of the processes of birth and gestation, the minority of the Indian woman, is missing from our perception? The biggest ethnic and religious minority is also taken for granted, and if given attention, is given attention in a very self-conscious, patronizing and condescending way, in which we want to see a certain variation from the common theme. I have to thank Mr. Jayant for having said without saying, mentioned without mentioning, what I would have thought he will say, something which reminds me of Pet Shop's pedigree, but he said genes. I'm very glad he put it that way, because talking of representation of communities, whatever one may think of two well-known individuals who have descendants, according to the laws of Manu, a higher caste woman having a child by a husband of a lower caste becomes mother of that belongs to the lowest of the lowest classes, the lowest caste. And I will not mention the name of that caste, but that is the caste to which I, according to my, belong. So, that caste representation on this stage today is perfect. But where is the unity of India in our minds? I want to draw your attention to a recent act about to become fully fledged legislation in Rajasthan, by which an educational qualification has been prescribed, made compulsory for all those contesting elections for the office of Sarpanch and members of the wards of blocks. After nearly 70 years of being free, through universal suffrage so diligently delivered to us by successive election commissions of India, and we have a distinguished former Chief Election Commissioner of India present today. After 70 such years of universal suffrage, which has nothing to do with educational qualifications, Rajasthan has now introduced a pernicious enactment by ordinance, some great urgency, by which anybody contesting for a Sarpanch's position has to be 8th class pass. The greatest chief minister Tamil Nadu has known Kamaraj would not have become a Sarpanch in Rajasthan. This particular enactment extinguishes the possibility of 90% of the women of Rajasthan to ever become Sarpanches or members of boards, and 84% of the men. Of course, there is reservation in the panchayats. So there will be every denomination of caste, class, is all reservations are intact. But what does this particular enactment ensure? That only the elite from every group will be electable. What is the purpose of giving the Constitution of India's copy to Arvind Kejriwal and not giving it to Vasundhara Raje? Narega, which was about to be called by the Congress Rajiv Gandhi Narega, but better sense prevailing was named quite unnecessarily in my view after another Gandhi. Narega has not been rolled back because of the phenomenal outcry of organizations, NGOs and political organizations across the country, spearheaded no doubt by the Congress, which said, do not dilute this scheme because the beneficiaries of it are predominantly rural women. But Narega is today in danger. What is the contribution or the role or the demand of Narega in the budget? Pitifully small. But that is the scheme which is sought to be rolled back or diluted. I would like to move from the subject of social unity as reflected by the position of women in India to another very important critical dimension of social unity in India, to which I alluded in passing, that of the religious minorities of India. I am not on the political aspect of this at all. The Congress has been as unmindful of the requirements of a composite society as it accuses the BJP of doing. We know too well the details of the Shah Banu case. We know who opened the locks in the masjid in Ayodhya. But the fact is that there is today an atmosphere of insecurity and uncertainty when it comes to the protection of the minorities. And I use the word protection advisedly. One person in this hall today who has anything but goodwill for the minorities if that person belongs to the religious majority in our country. Not one person. There will be nobody here who has anything but goodwill. And yet, such is the deafening silence of all of that category of people in India to what is happening, that this uncertainty and insecurity increases. Reference was made to Ghar Vapsi. Ghar Vapsi is not a government project. Ghar Vapsi has not got the sanction of the BJP. But a virus does not require the permission of the Department of Health. It needs to be arrested by the government and the Department of Health. what is the ghar that is being talked about? India is the ghar of every person who is in India. So where is the question of returning to one's own house? It is the most audacious, the most arrogant, and the most unacceptable concept that is being floated, and floated with impunity. My ghar is not a ghar from which anybody has left, that anybody can be brought back. It belongs to all those who are the citizens of this country. But what is the concept behind ghar vapsi? It can be traced back, and since I am speaking on the mandate given to me, namely social unity, it can be traced back to the concept of the two-nation theory, which the Muslim League under Muhammad Ali Jinnah took to its logical conclusion in the creation of Pakistan. But the adherents of the two-nation theory in the majority community in India and the Hindu community in India have not yet completed their agenda. I do not go along with the view that V.D. Savarkar spoke of the two-nation theory before the Muslim League made it its official policy. He may have, but I do not think that is the main point. The point is that the Hindu Rashtra idea has remained with a large number of Hindus in India much before the partition of India, and it remains today an active item on its agenda. And ghar vapsi is a reflection of that. Those who say that a person not a Hindu has to or can be helped to come back to the Hindu fold will have to say, welcome into its supposed home Tiruvalluvar, who was a Jaina. Would Valluvar become something Vasudevacharya or something like that? I would like Valluvar to remain where he is. Whether he was a Jaina or not is a matter of conjecture. But if he did not say that he belonged to this or that sect, this or that community, that is the freedom which this ghar has given to people. Maulana Azad would have to become something else. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan will have to become something else. I want to hear, O Rangashahi sung by a person with the name of K.J. Yesudas. I do not want K.J. Yesudas to become a Hindu, if he is not one already. He perhaps believes that he is. I want to be able to hear Bade Ghulam Ali Khan sing Chhod Mori Baiya Krishna Kanhaiya. That is the ghar to which we belong. And that is the ghar which today is being reconfigured in India, not by the official sanction of this government, but by a kind of benign silence. And I would like to take this opportunity to put it to the Prime Minister of India that he is the Prime Minister of the Republic of India, and he must come forth in clear and ringing terms to say, whoever is talking of ghar vapsi is not doing with my knowledge or my blessing. It is being done of his own accord. I dissociate myself from it. I disagree with it. He may say, why should I say this? I have not done it. Some insignificant people are doing it. No, sir. It is not insignificant people who are doing this. It is significant people who are doing this. And your silence in this matter is becoming a significant matter of a significant anxiety amongst a significant and growingly significant population in this country. I have great satisfaction from the fact that President Obama had to come and say what he did. I think he was thought partnering. He was just sharing his thought. But why should he have said this? That is the point. Not that he said it, he should not have said it. Protocol has been breached. What is his business to say? That is a different matter. Let us go into that separately. But the fact is that people are thinking of this. Why should church after church in Delhi be vandalized? Now, let it be vandalized by the vandals. But who are the people who are responsible for Delhi, who can say that this should be stopped? And I must also say this. During the 49 days of our, there was the most atrocious misbehavior of certain law enforcing authorities with an African community staying in a part of Delhi. That was also objectionable. The Congress speaks very correctly today and bravely about the need for a composite ideology in the BJP. But till today, apart from a very stirring and moving speech made on the floor of the House by the then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, there has not really come from the Congress that apology for 1984 which should have come. It has not come. And when the Congress speaks of the dictatorial inclinations of our present Prime Minister, it is not wrong. But the Congress should not think that the people of India have no memory of the emergency and of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. If there has been a democratically elected dictator in anywhere in the world first setting the precedence for elected dictatorship, it was Indira Gandhi. The Congress is still forgetful of the fact that its party itself was called Congress within brackets I. And we have Mr. Dindivanam Ramamurthy here who contested in Dindivanam from the Congress O against a candidate of the Congress I. So I is not I itself, stands for ego. So let those who criticize with self-criticism also. I would like to revert to what Professor Vaidyanathan said in an extremely soothing way for us. He spoke of the informal sector. Like many in this hall, I walk not just for the sake of keeping myself fit, which is essential beyond a certain age, but because it makes sense to walk to a shop, to a grocery, to your daughter's house next door, to a clinic, to a cyber cafe. Believe me, the social unity of India is in the streets of India. There is no place for a pedestrian to walk today because the streets are being widened from 2-lane to 4-lane to 6-lane, edging out the pedestrian to the very extremity of the road that joins the nearest wall, which incontinent Indian males irrigate 24/7. Roads are cemented, but the pavements are obliterated. This is symbolic. The pedestrian in today's India has no place under the sun, because the motor car and the motorcycle, the upwardly mobile middle class and the limitlessly mobile rich class have 6-8 dozen cars of varying widths and lengths on the streets of India. There is no social unity. The Right to Information Act is a great unifier. After the Representation of People's Act, the Right to Information Act is playing a formidable role. Of the RTI applications at any given time in India are responded to. The remaining remain unresponded. There is an architecture and a hierarchy of appeals, including penalties for non-compliance, but that is the fact. And RTI Acts pour in all the time, most of them of a vexed nature. Many of them about service matters which should be taken to appropriate authorities in the departments. But even so, even if out of 10, 4 or 5 RTI applications are good, they are important. Let us not forget the story of the district collector, on whom there was an RTI, perhaps triggered by a personal pique. I'm guessing, maybe by peanuts, who wanted to know the details of the district collector's logbook to see if his staff car had been misused. The district collector had to give that information to a peanut seller. I think this is a tremendous unification of the country's moral will. And since it was an RTI matter, I should not hesitate to say that the then President of India, while leaving her high office, had to respond to an RTI Act on the gifts that had been given to the President of India in the President's official capacity. Answers were given, as is only to be expected of the high incumbent of that high office. But nobody can be spared from that. It's a great leveler. But what is happening to the RTI Act today? It is being regarded not just by the central government, but by the different governments as a nuisance at its best and a threat at its worst. But it is a great social unifier. We are today socially ununified in many respects because of our own biases and prejudices. We are in many respects ununified because of the ideology practiced, if not professed, but professed and practiced by many who are in political power. But I should not end on that note. The social unity of India, like the economic unity of India, which Professor Vaidyanathan spoke of, is being maintained by the simple people of India, not by the political and religious leaders of India. If our social unity is under threat, it is not because of the people of India, but because those who presume to be leading the people of India. I would like to know the name of a single religious head, and I know the next speaker is going to speak on the religious unity of India. I would like to know the name of a single religious head in recent times who has died saving humans during a riot. Individuals have died, policemen have died, men in uniform and women in uniform have died. But has any Dharma Guru lost even a moment's peace, let alone his life? No. Political leaders, I do not wish to speak about. I am not naming any person either, but I am just putting it to you that in the instances of people who have died, Hindu and Muslim during riots, Hindu and Sikh during riots, saving others, you will only find names of the simple people of India who are united in this. The social unity of India is a great ideal. We practice it simply without even realizing it. But more important than the unity of our society, more important than our society being unified, is our society being just. Mr. Jayant, I shall take a minute more. There was a gathering like this in Kolkata and a very important industrialist came to speak. He was being felicitated. And he was asked, "Sir, what is your vision for India?" He said, "I want every Indian to be rich." Now, that is not a wrong goal. I did not have the chance to speak, nor would I have wanted to contradict him. I think I would have expected him to say, "I would like every Indian to be just." And that includes the politicians, that includes the dharma gurus of all religions. But it self-includes already the people of India who deserve better from their leaders. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have no justification for not having a woman here or a Muslim representative here, but I think you spoke on their behalf much better than what they would have done themselves. So we are proud in that choice. You have left us with some very significant soul-searching thoughts. And the nearest example that I could think of that social unity was in any railway accident. For instance, the one that happened on the border of Hosur yesterday. There was no Tamil Nadu, Karnataka feeling there. There was no question of who is in the train, who is not in the train. But the first to reach this spot were villagers from nearby who came to help them. I think that symbolizes the kind of unity that you talked about. May I request Mr. Gurumurthy to kindly get on.
There is an advantage in talking as the last speaker, but there is also a disadvantage because you have always been tested already for 90 minutes. And the advantage of listening to the honest and plain expressions of the speakers before me also lends clarity to what I should be talking and how I should be expressing and modulating my own thoughts. See, political unity may be achievable. Economic unity, as Vaidyanathan says, already exists. And social unity may also be achieved, but I am very doubtful whether religious unity can be achieved. In fact, I told Mr. Jayant that religious harmony may be a better term to use than religious unity. Every religion longs for unity. In fact, there is no unity within any religion. And if you look at unity among religions, when every religion is angling and longing for unity, working for unity, despite the fact there is only one text, one God, and one prophet, there is no unity among religions which were about unity on this basis. So it's a very complex subject. It is very easily said that this is how one should behave, and this is how the majority should behave, this is how the minority should behave. It's all very easily said. But the underlying drive of any religion is to influence the people who are the followers. And unity as a concept drives towards uniformity and homogeneity. So in India, we never attempted this. None of the religious streams of India attempted to drive towards homogeneity or uniformity, because it denied validity to the naturally evolving and existing concept of diversity. Diversity is in the very nature of creation. So we accepted so much diversity that in India the number of gods are said to be 33 crores. At one point in time, the number of followers were less than the number of gods in this country. You know, the capacity to worship gods and the capacity to transcend one God was appreciated by a great thinker, Jean-Pierre Lehman, who was the advisor to the WTO a decade back. He said, in the context of globalization, he was no philosopher, he was no spiritualist, he was an economic thinker and a management expert and a trade specialist. He said that the capacity of the Indian people to worship more than one God is probably the clue for global religious harmony. That you should worship only one God and follow only one text and follow only one guru may lead to chaos and has led to bloodbath in the world and wars, which cannot be recalled today in the current and contemporaneous situation. You cannot recall, but the forces which work for this unity continues to work for this kind of unity, and the consequences we are seeing today. So the idea that there should be unity even in one religion works against doctrinal tolerance. Doctrinal tolerance is the most important requirement for unity within a religion or harmony within a religion. If there is no doctrinal tolerance, then not only there cannot be harmony within that religion, it cannot be harmonious in its attitude to another religion. The greatest advantage of India is doctrinal tolerance of all the religions that have taken roots in this country. In any honest debate, this has to be debated. There is no use in shutting our eyes to the fact that doctrinal tolerance, which is an ingredient of the Indian spiritual streams, which great works like Encyclopedia Britannica celebrated, which was quoted by the Supreme Court also, is not being debated, because then doctrinal intolerance will also have to be debated. You see, a debate, an intellectual discourse must be rooted in truth. It cannot be populist. A populist discourse is a politician's preserve. It is not an intellectual's domain. An intellectual has to speak the truth and become unpopular in the process if he has to be. You know, when I became very popular, when I was handed that popularity by Rajiv Gandhi, who arrested me midnight on a forged letter, I became very famous. Everybody put me on the front page of newspapers. Then I was very worried. I am from village. I was very reserved. I was sitting by the side of Mukesh Ambani and writing articles against Reliance without his knowing I was Gurumurthy. I had that kind of anonymity. So when I was arrested and I was in the front page of all newspapers, I asked Ramnath Goenka, with whom I shared such intense relationship, Ramnath, my whole life has changed. He said, Guru, the greatest challenge for you has come. You know, popularity is something which you can never conceal. You can conceal your money, you can conceal your wealth, you can conceal your properties, but you cannot conceal your popularity. But he quoted Mahatma Gandhi, whose popularity nosedived in 1923. And when the BBC interviewed him, Mr. Gandhi, it seems your popularity has left you. Mahatma Gandhi said, popularity comes without invitation and goes without farewell. You know, goes without farewell means that you are willing to risk your popularity, which the politician can never, an intellectual must. Unless you risk your popularity to stand and tell the truth which this audience will reject, you are not standing by the truth. If you want to hear applause always, approval always, get approbation always, then you are digressing from truth. And I will never do it, and I will continue to speak in the strain in which I am used to. You know, doctrinal intolerance is not the domain of any religion born in this country. I will tell you what doctrinal intolerance means and what it can lead to. You know, in the year 1532, a group of Christians by name Anabaptists, they were pure, highly respected. They were called Anabaptists because they called themselves as baptized again, rebaptized people. And you know, they felt the Christians have become corrupt. They were driven by all worldly pleasures, and they were acquisitive, and they were moving away from their religious moorings, the Bible. And so they decided that unless you correct the course of Christianity and bring them in tune with the text, it will not come back and we will not attain salvation. This was their firm belief. So they seized power in Westphalia and banned all books other than Bible, burnt, nationalized all properties, and women, and banned. You should not get one man or one woman. You should view everything as a social. You know, this was supposed to be the precursor to Marxian philosophy of revolution, nationalization, community living. All these thoughts, there are hundreds of researches which show that Marxism is a derivative of Anabaptist revolution in Westphalia. Ultimately, the Lutheran Church had to send an army to control and crush the Anabaptists. You can see hundreds and hundreds of this kind of instances in faiths which are basically doctrinal intolerance. They had to acquire tolerance through experience. Human beings are always intolerant, whether they are Hindus or Muslims or Christians. Basically, they are intolerant. Intolerant of others, intolerant of people who they dislike. It is the doctrines which will make them tolerant. If the doctrine is intolerant, then there is something very seriously wrong. Doctrinal intolerance is what should be debated according to me. But in India, no one is willing to touch that subject. If you don't touch the subject, you don't find a solution. There is one Professor Ramal, Harvard University professor, he died a couple of years back. He conducted a huge research about how mass killing of human beings by human beings, organized killings took place in the world. And he did 30 years research and built a corpus of data which is available free on the net. He said that something like 1.2 billion people have been killed in the last 2,200 years. 1.2 billion people have been killed. Till in the 20th century alone, he estimated the death at 300 million in the 20th century, just now. It is ideological drive which created this huge bloodbath in the last 2000 years. Ideology presumes I am right, you are wrong. Philosophy thinks I am right, maybe you are also right. There has never been an ideological orientation in India. It was always philosophical. You know who said this? Not a philosopher, not a spiritualist, but a politician. Bill Clinton said this in the year 2008. It is ideology that has made the world drive towards violence, war, bloodshed. It is philosophy which will save the world from that. The greatest advantage is that we have a philosophic orientation to life. And in Ramal's statistics, there is only one country in which the bloodbaths of the kind that he has described elsewhere has not taken place. Till the 13th century in India, according to Ramal, there has been only 3 phenomenon of bloodbath. One is the Kalinga War, next is the Sati, third is the Thugis. And he says, in the Kalinga War, 100,000 deaths took place. And in Sati and Thugis, he says the deaths were in tens of thousands rather than hundreds of thousands. This country was not ruled by one king or one rule or by one law. It was not even regarded as one country. How is it that these people behaved in a way that they could avoid this kind of massive violence? There must be something in this country, something in its way of life as organized. You know what is the reason? It is not the rule during peace. It is rule during the war which decides the character of the people. In peaceful times, your wisdom is there, you are aware, you are conscious, you are compassionate. But in times of war, you have none of these. The rules of war in India were noble. In fact, A.L. Basham says if Indians could not build an empire, it was because of noble rules of war that they had inherited and observed. It is not that these rules of war in Mahabharata, Dharma Vijaya, Lobha Vijaya, Asura Vijaya. Only Dharma Vijaya is welcome, Lobha Vijaya is not to be countenanced, and Asura Vijaya is never to be accepted, was the rule that prevailed in India. In fact, Chanakya said, you must be in a position to come to terms with Lobha Vijaya because he had come in contact with the Greek people. And unless our rules of war changed, we are in danger. This is what Chanakya said. You know, Kadambari Bhana wrote a treatise in 5th century condemning Chanakya as a dishonest person propagating adharma, and that is why in the entire northern India, Arthashastra was burnt. There was no copy available, only one copy escaped, and that was in Mysore. Because he advocated a concept of war which he thought was unsuited to the times that are going to come, and he proved right. You know, here in Mahabharata we have heard that two armies will live side by side, they will come sit together in the evening, have a drink, and next day they will fight. You know, this happened in the 16th century in Kerala. In Kerala, the Mohammedan kings and the Portuguese fought. And the Mohammedan kings wrote letters to the Portuguese saying how they used to conduct their war. They say, we will beat the drum in the morning after the sunrise, you also beat the drum, then you are prepared for war, then only we will attack you. In the evening, you beat the drum, then we will stop the war. If I beat the drum, you will stop the war. And there should be no problem for our agriculture, is the regular activity of people. We will have the war somewhere away from the place where the people live. The Portuguese were shocked. One Vaidyanathan, who described all this, by Padmanabha Menon, who wrote the history of Kerala. I am just reading out a couple of paragraphs. It must be very clear to us that we don't know about ourselves. We condemn ourselves as intolerant. We condemn ourselves as communal. We condemn ourselves, we accept that we have not called ourselves terrorists, we have condemned ourselves as everything. And this is now a discourse which is popular in India, particularly in English journalism. See what Vaidyanathan writes about the rules of war. It is the rules of war that characterizes the culture of a society. It is not the rule in normal times. Vaidyanathan adds, there was neither night fighting nor ambuscades. All fighting was in daytime when the sun had well risen, and the opposing camps were either pitched near each other, and both sides slept securely. At the sunrise, soldiers of both armies mingled at the tank, put on their armor, ate their rice, chewed their betel, gossiped, and chatted together. I am not reading Mahabharata. I am reading what was the rule of war that prevailed in Kerala in the 16th century. You know, this rule of war collapsed. This artificial system broke down very quickly. The stress of fighting against the Portuguese. When you fight against barbarians, you can never observe rules of war, noble rules of war. Has any history department in India taught the noble rules of war in India prevailed till the 16th, 17th century, and if I ask them to teach it, it is called saffronization of history. Because we have no respect for truth. We have respect for abuses. I think there has to be a more honest, more open, more courageous discourse in this country, debate in this country. And the debate has to be a well-informed one. There should be no anger or hate. Without debate, without dialogue, there can be no tolerance, there can be no mutual acceptance, there can be no mutual respect. In India, we always debated and discoursed. You know the famous Adi Shankara Mandana Mishra debate. Held views completely opposite to Adi Shankara. He believed in rituals. He not only believed in rituals, he believed in animal sacrifice. And Adi Shankara opposed it. Adi Shankara went for a debate with Mandana Mishra. And Mandana Mishra was a very elderly person, highly educated. And he told Adi Shankara, you are such a youngster, I don't want to have debate with you, which makes me feel shy that I am having a debate with a young man. It's an unequal debate, so I allow you to choose a judge. Adi Shankara chose Mandana Mishra's wife as the judge. And in the debate, when she was chosen as umpire, she put a garland around Adi Shankara and Mandana Mishra and said, the person whose garland loses the freshness is the loser because he has got angry, and because of the heat in the body, the flowers have lost their freshness. So she made the flowers the umpire, anger the offender. You know, in no debate, you should hate others. You should not abuse others. You should only look at what the truth is. And if you don't have the courage to look at the truth and only abuse, then you are not fit for a debate. So I have a feeling that an honest debate, I completely agree with Mr. Chandrasekhar, that there has to be a debate only on specifics. Specific topic of what is doctrinal intolerance in different religions. Let there be a debate. I recall in the Madurai Kamaraj University in the year 1998, there was a debate in which I participated. I don't know why they chose me as the representative of the Hindus. And there were some Muslim mullahs were there, and a Christian archbishop was there. And so they asked me to talk first. I said I have absolutely no difficulty in accepting the fact that Shankara and Muhammad and Christ are all the same. And my God and your God are the same. And the title of the conference was Religious Harmony Conference. That is, Mada Nallinakka Mahanadu. So I said, I have considered this. So I don't think I need to be told about how to be harmonious with other religions. But I would like both these gentlemen to say whether they respect my religion, my God, my religious leaders as equal to theirs. The conference ended before it started. We must understand that unless you debate all this openly, you cannot course correct those very religions, those very streams which have inherently violent potential. And if you don't talk about it, then you are shying away from debating the truth. Finally, I will close with what I regard as the crux. The debate I told you, debate is an impossibility in India unless the English educated Indians take a lead in this. Because they are the ones who are preventing this debate, according to me. Because they form the backbone of the distorted secularism that prevails in this country. And there is a basis for dialogue which has been created at the global level. Fortunately, it could never have happened in India. It has happened outside the country. On the 10th of December 2008, all the religious leaders of the world gathered at The Hague on the occasion of the 60th anniversary of the Human Rights Declaration. where all of them signed an astoundingly impossible declaration which was not possible in 2000. The Roman Catholic Church first signed the declaration in 2008 and withdrew from it. And in 2008 they also signed, because truth is in the meanwhile. And the 4 points in this declaration which can form the basis for national discourse is that every religion must accept and respect the religious leaders, symbols and the thoughts of other religions, and no religion should deride the other religion or the masters or the beliefs of other religion. Third, every religious person has a right to be in the religion of his birth. Fourth, no person should be converted, whether it is garvapasi or going out of the gar, by force or by inducement. This applies to both. Garvapasi term may be wrong, but if you don't regard garvapasi as reconversion, you call it as conversion. Any conversion is wrong. So if someone is going to talk only about garvapasi and not about conversion, then that is not an honest debate. Either you restrict all conversions or you don't talk about conversions at all. Unless we rise to this level, I don't think there is going to be any honest debate left, and I am extremely happy that Hindu and Sastra University provided me an opportunity to share my thoughts in the manner I generally used to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was quintessence Gurumurthy, if you have heard him before. We have some time for a dozen questions or more. Mr. Chandrasekhar wants to leave a little early, so I would suggest the first 3 questions may be addressed to Mr. B.K. Chandrasekhar. Our volunteers here will give you the cameras. Please identify yourself and ask the questions. First to Mr. B.K. Chandrasekhar. Please be pointed in the question. It must be a question. We are not asking you to make a statement.
Check. Can I have the first question?
Yes.
Sir, I think
Who has the mic?
the next debate should be a national agenda and a national unity on the basic needs of all citizens of this country. That agenda should be reduced to writing and signed by all political parties. No political party can say, someone, let him be hungry, I will be happy. Let him be without house, I will have a bungalow. This is a must. And the next debate, Sastra and Vaidyanathan should initiate is a national agenda and a national unity for the basic citizens of this country. I hope you agree.
Thank you, sir. Please ask a question.
Yeah, can I have a question for Mr. B.K. Chandrasekhar?
Yes, please.
Yeah, can you see me on the
Yes,
the
I can see you.
Okay.
Yeah, he has it.
Thank you, eminent speakers. My question to Mr. Chandrasekhar. So you talked about the need for debate and consultation in the present government, whenever they take any decisions. Sir, let me tell you, we have been totally tired of what 10 years about policy indecision and whatever else. We have seen enough discussions between Manmohan Singh and Raja and Chidambaram and whatever else. We right now, if you actually see the progressive results of the elections and also the Delhi elections, you should wake up and realize that people really want to get up and serve and get things done. I don't know when you're going to realize that. That's my question. Will you ever realize that?
Election results must serve as a lesson to political parties. Hello?
Sorry, do you want me to repeat that question? Did you get it? Yeah. When will you shut up and learn to serve?
Well, on the outcome of the Delhi elections, there are people here who are much, much better qualified than I to respond, but I feel that those who supported Aam Aadmi Party have sent out a very clear message that they're not entirely satisfied with what the mainstream parties have been doing. And the public conflict, which wasn't a dialogue, by the way, at all during the campaign, it was a terrible thing that happened there. People calling each other names and so on. I think that influenced the voters also. You know, that there is a definite continuing dissatisfaction with politicians as a whole, number one, that there is a trust deficit about and in the politicians. And secondly, you know, there was nothing positive which BJP put forward in Delhi. Congress was on the back foot for a number of reasons. But BJP, by all common sort of agreement of almost everyone who has studied those elections in the last few days, it was negative. It was negative. And you know, there is this peculiar thing about politicians. You criticize me saying, you know, that you have done something wrong. Now, instead of responding to that, you know what I do? I'll say, what did you do 5 years ago? Or 10 years ago? You did the same thing. Absolute nonsense, actually. You know, if I have done, I think, maybe Dr. Gurumurthy referred to that, I don't know. If I have done something wrong, that is not negated or rectified by someone else doing some other wrong or the same kind of wrong. I see this every day in Karnataka, in the legislature also. There was an argument 2 days back on some land layout and mining license being granted and so on. So the moment somebody points this out, they say, what did you do 5 years ago? Here are the records. Completely unbecoming. It doesn't give any information to the electorate, doesn't take them seriously. It's a sort of meaningless argument. I think the arrogance of the parties, I have very little hesitation in saying that the arrogance of the parties and the manifest arrogance of some of the leaders in the parties definitely put off the electorate. There's no question about it. I think at least now we should learn something from that and be a bit more modest and humble. Anyone else?
One last question for Professor Chandrasekhar. One last question. And it must be a question, please.
It is a question, but it needs a clip, is all right. Hello. New ideas and new India is the topic for today. It implies that the existing ideas have to be changed immediately. I just asked this question. During my childhood, I recall that people preferred schools, hospitals run by government. Today, I don't think that is the case. I do not think that technology is going to change it. I only wonder and wish that if Mr. Gurumurthy's philosophy will change it. But can Mr. Chandrasekhar tell, or can Aam Aadmi Party, for which we have had some good words, say that very soon schools and hospitals government will meet the ends of people? Thank you.
What's the final thrust of it?
Yeah, final thrust. Just what you expect the answer for.
Sir, will the schools and colleges and hospitals run by government be as good as they were? In my childhood, the preferred school was a government school. In my childhood, my parents preferred a government hospital. Today, it is not the case. If it's not the case, how and when will it change? Will Aam Aadmi Party at least do it in Delhi?
Well, the first thing that Mr. Kejriwal did when he met the union ministers the day before yesterday was to ask for some land to set up schools. I don't know very much about them, but I've spoken to one or two people in AAP, and they have divided amongst themselves well before the election, by the way, well before the elections. Other parties talk about it, but they don't do much, in terms of shadow cabinet and all that kind of thing. But these people focused, I was told, on 2 or 3 issues. 1, primary schools. 2, primary health centers. And they had a formidable challenge from the dozens and dozens of health centers and the thousands and thousands of schools set up by the RSS. Not today, over the last 30, 40 years, some of them running extremely well in Delhi itself. So Aam Aadmi Party was up against a kind of a challenge. So he said, although BJP RSS, more the RSS was concentrating on getting in kids from the poor also to those schools and so on. I think Kejriwal and company really contrasted government schools with these exclusive private schools. We call them public schools. I don't know why we call them public schools. They are somewhere along the line of elitist private schools. So I think, he probably wants to focus on schooling a bit more closely. There might be in discussion, by the way, with Dr. Krishna Kumar and so on. I have no idea of whom I think very highly, actually, NCERT, do this. If they don't do that, the very electorate which has supported AAP in the Juggis of Delhi will probably migrate again. They don't do that. But this is a challenge. The challenge which all of us faced, the quality of schooling, primary schools, government schools, which far outnumber private schools.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chandrasekhar has another appointment, so I think we should give him a big hand before he leaves. We have another 15 minutes, and we would request you to kindly name the speaker to whom you want to address your question. And perhaps if Mr. Gopalakrishna Gandhi's speech had any resonance, we hope one of the women will start asking the first question.
Sir, I am Muruga Bharati. My question is to Professor R. Viswanathan. Sir? Sorry. Sir, Professor Vaidyanathan. Sir. Sir, thanks for being the intellectual voice of the common man. Sir, I am here, sir. Thanks for being the intellectual voice of the common man. You have talked about a lot of the entrepreneurs, especially the small entrepreneurs. But my question is, what is the line between the capitalism and communism, sir? If the government supports a lot of entrepreneurship, then most people think it would lead to privatization and everything will be leads to capitalism. But you say that just help or at least don't disturb the small entrepreneurs. Then what do you want really the government should take care of the entrepreneurs, especially the small entrepreneurs, sir? Can you give some more explanations or 1 or 2 points?
Yeah. No, I think this debate about capitalism, communism are all, gone. Old debates. Basic point is, the fundamental point is, whether one likes it or not, government is a better thing for public at large, people at large, which the age-old Rajaji used to insist. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody remembers Rajaji. Now, he is one of the peculiar person who cannot be added another G before addressing. He already had a G in his name. So Rajaji Ji is not a... But throughout his life, he consistently maintained one of the things I did in my own small capacity was to write a note to the PM that we should close some 10 to 15 ministries at Delhi, minimum. It's not required, actually. All and duplication. Now it is anyhow suggested that dovetailing powers to state and cooperative federalism and other thing. Smaller government is always a better government. And somebody told in his childhood days he felt that the government school was much better, government hospital, because in those days, the private school business has not started. They didn't know, understand. Many of them went to government school. Now they have, it's very difficult to go back to those government situation should improve. For that you have to make every minister, every bureaucrat, every IAS, IPS officer should get admitted only in government hospital. When I was in school, Rajaji had a minor operation, or I don't exactly recall, but some procedure. He went to what in those days called government hospital. He got admitted there, and newspapers next day, in those days there was no television or anything. Next day told that the procedure was successful, and it was very common. Much later came this whole scenario got shifted. So unless you insist, or at least insist all those ministers getting arrested for corruption, they must get admitted in government hospital, because immediately they say they have got chest problem and go to private. This at least. It's all. See, unless top people in those days, they used to send their children in government school. So the situation is completely, the only way in which you can say the private schools should have certain amount of what one can call, regulatory framework, transparency and all those things. Other than that, I think going back in terms of, requesting government should undertake many of these tasks. It's very, very difficult. Government neither has a inclination, nor, practically it is very difficult. In Bangalore today, I tell you, in government hospital, it has come in BBC also. Child born to be shown, you have to pay that ayah. And they are also terrible, 500 rupees for a male boy and 250 for girls. It's not, I am not cooking up or anything, it's the actual situation. She takes it for the, I am sure everywhere it would, unity and diversity, all states it will be there in some way or other, right? So, expecting that to significantly change, I don't think is going to, I would love that, in the sense if it can happen, nothing like that. After all, I am also a product of what you were mentioning in terms of government thing, right? Okay.
Yeah, that lady there with the mic, yeah, please.
Good evening, dignitaries. It's been a pleasure listening to all of you. I'm very happy to hear today that somebody is even acknowledging the fact that the 50% of population, the women, have become minorities, which I'm really very happy. So many of you debated. I'll be very excited and happy to know what would be the solution. How do we mainstream women into this economy, women who are educated and are glorified, they say homemakers. We have used our country's resources to educate them. How are we going to take back their resources and add to the economy? How are we going to integrate women into mainstream and add their value into the GDP of this country? Thank you. My question could be to Mr. Gopalakrishna Gandhi, because he spoke about it. So I would really be happy to hear from him what solution he can offer to mainstream women. Thank you, sir.
I think you have mainstreamed women today by asking this question. More of you should ask this question. And more of us, guys, should also be asking this question. I think that is the main thing. I do not believe that mainstreaming either women or minorities or the Northeast is how it should be looked at. There is no such thing as the mainstream and a margin. There is an extraordinary distortion that has taken place in our country. Let's not talk of other countries. It's been worse. It's definitely worse in the experience of Malaya we know of. But in our country, there has been a gross distortion of this. And unless there is a continuous intolerance of this, vocal and visible, there will be no change. You cannot expect mainstreaming to be done by men. You cannot even expect it to be done by political parties because their agenda, their priorities are different. To accept the fact that they are guilty on this score, and women have to make them feel guilty at every step and every turn. That's the only way in which you can do it.
Yeah.
I can go back.
So, my question to Sri Gopalakrishna Gandhi ji. My name is Ananta Narayanan. You were talking about the largest minority in India. Wouldn't it be better to rephrase them as the second largest majority in this country? The reason I have a very particular reason why I'm stating this. From my home state of Kerala, you know, the amount of resources that they hold in terms of economic prosperity, political strength, it is impossible. Actually, the majority community, which is in a minority, we worked there for several years, and I'm telling this from my own instance, that even the education minister, it doesn't matter if it is from the UDF or the LDF, anybody, it has almost never been from the so-called majority community. And one more very interesting peculiar fact to our country, which we should be, when we talk about Garva Pasi, is you should understand all over the world, the trend is to the minority community to ask for laws banning conversion. But here the trend is that the majority community asks for laws for conversion to prevent the minorities from converting them. I think these things we should keep in mind, and we should also keep in mind that just recently, about a couple of months back, the 25th anniversary of the ethnic cleansing, the genocide of the Kashmiri Pandits took place almost unnoticed. You know, 6th December is hammered into our mind. Even if I get up in my sleep, I know what 6th December. But 19th January 1990, I don't think anybody in this audience will ever know what that date is. Thank you very much.
You have made your point, Mr. Anantanarayana. Is there anything for me to add to what you have said? Do you want me to say that yes, minorities should call themselves majorities? You want them to be called the second largest majority? You want them to be called second largest majority? Yeah. What about the third and the fourth, the fifth and the sixth, those who are finally reduced to just a nullity? I would like you to please ponder the motivation of your observation. Do you want a change of name only? Do you think that will change the situation? Please regard yourself as the minority in any situation or the majority in any situation, and be fair and honest and just. Do not try to score any point. A majority is a majority, a minority is a minority, not because of numbers, but because of the security that they feel, the sense of security and confidence that they feel. That is what makes a person a majority or a minority. You can be a minority in terms of numbers, but if you have confidence, then you are yourself. Do not, for any reason other than fairness, give names and nomenclatures to people. It is a terrible shame that the anniversaries, the experiences, and the traumas of the Kashmiri Pandits have been overlooked by people. They have been overlooked by everyone, majority, minority, irrespective of that. The fact is, they have been overlooked. They were a minority because they were insecure. In Delhi, the Sikhs were a minority because they were insecure. In Muzaffarnagar, the Muslims have been a minority because they've been insecure. It is immaterial that they are numerically strong or weak. Every Indian should feel secure. That is what is meant by secularism. And the fact that secularism today is being even made the subject of speculation is abhorrent to the Constitution of India. It is known that secularism was introduced in the preamble by Mrs. Gandhi during the emergency for reasons which we need not go into. I do not think those reasons were very honorable. But the fact is that secularism today is part of the Constitution. But forget the Constitution. Let it not be part of the Constitution. It is part of the chemistry of our people. And if you feel that it is something which should be renamed as majority or minority, go ahead. If you feel some sense of by saying minority should be the second largest majority, if you are in love with the word majority, please love it to your content.
The next question.
I have a question to Mr. Gurumurthy. Sir, excuse me. I have a question to Mr. Gurumurthy. Please go on. I'm Loyola, visiting professor from Loyola Institute of Business Administration. Mr. Gurumurthy, you were talking on this religious unity, and in fact, you preferred the coinage of religious harmony. Now, my question is, in our country, to bring this religious unity or harmonious religion, who should take the initiatives? Either the government or the religious leaders. This is my question.
The government cannot take the government or the political system or political parties cannot take any initiative in this matter. It is only courageous intellectuals who are willing to risk disrepute, willing to face unpopularity. Only they can take this position. If a religion has a theology which says that it will lay down rules not only for its followers, but it also lay down rules for people who do not follow that religion, you should question that religion. How can you lay down rules for others and call them kafirs? This courage no party can have, no government can have, no court can have. It is only disinterested, courageous individuals who can do that. There is no use looking up to establishment. Establishment is a product of this distortion. It cannot clear this distortion.
Next question is for
Mr. Faisal Rahman.
Yeah. My question is to Mr. Gurumurthy. Can Mr. Gurumurthy risk his reputation and condemn groups that want to make India a Hindu Rashtra? One. Second, he spoke about India had a philosophy and not ideology. And what is the ideology that is making some people say that India is a Hindu Rashtra and we would like to make India a Hindu Rashtra?
I would like to have a debate with anyone on what is Hindu Rashtra. If there is any religion which does not have a theology, it is Hinduism. It has only a philosophy. The Supreme Court has held Hindutva, which is the mirror reflection of Hindu Rashtra, as the foundation for Indian secularism. You must read that judgment. That judgment is the law of the land. And we simply criticize some English scholars who have understood the true meaning of Hinduism. It is a religion which accepts all religions. If Hinduism accepts all religions, that is the foundation of secularism. Because secularism in India does not reject religions. It means promotion of all religions, respecting all religions, accepting all religions. If that is the meaning of secularism, and that is the meaning of Hinduism also. Is anyone willing for a debate on this? Abuse is not the answer to philosophy. Labeling is not the way to distort the debate. We should have a debate on what is Hindu Rashtra. Let the Hindu and Shastra arrange a debate on Hindu Rashtra between anyone and me. Then you will know Hindu Rashtra is not a communal concept. It is not a sectarian concept. It is not a concept of violence. It is not a theocratic concept. I will prove it from the judgments of the Supreme Court, starting with the judgment of 1977, in which M.H. Beg was there R.S. Sarkaria was there. Their judgment said Hinduism is a faith which accepts all faiths. Why do we reject all this and a political notation that Hinduism is communal? I am not willing to accept.
We have only 2 more questions and the mics are already with them.
The question is for Mr. Sri Gopalakrishna Gandhi. My name is Srinivas. The subject of the day is new ideas for a new India. So since that being the subject, what Rajasthan government has done regarding educational qualification for the Sarpanch, is it not a good new idea? There are 2 caveats. One is that you have quoted about Kamaraj. Kamaraj is maybe an exceptional figure, but everybody is not Kamaraj. Number 2, education gives you the power to think, to differentiate between good and bad. So educational qualification for these representatives may be a good idea to start with. Thank you. So I would like your comment on that.
Thank you very much for that. Kamaraj was not the kind of exception you have in mind. He was an exceptional leader, and I believe he was the greatest chief minister Tamil Nadu has had. But Kamaraj's exceptionality is Kamaraj's exceptionality. He shares with a large number of people, again a majority of people, who have not gone beyond that grade of education. To legally deny them the right to contest an election, not an appointment to an office, but contest an election, which makes them representatives of the people, is, I believe, not just unconstitutional and illegal, but grossly unethical. And I would also like to say in this context, linking your comment to Mr. Gurumurthy's comments a few moments ago. Of course, Hinduism is a philosophy which believes in the equality of all religions and has no problem about accepting faiths. The problem is not with Hinduism. The problem is with a highly educated type of Hindu who interprets the and ecumenical philosophical basis of Hinduism to suit the purpose of patriarchy within Indian society. I am not interested in comparing the committed applause of a few with the honest applause of others, but I completely would like you to listen to the spirit of Mr. Gurumurthy's observation, that it is the dissenting, courageous thought sharer who is not interested in going away with the cheers of his audience, but with the knowledge that a bitter truth has been heard honestly. That is what is important.
There is only one question to go, but before that, I would like to invite our Managing Director and CEO, Mr. Rajiv Lochan, to the stage.
Sir, good evening, sir.
1 second. No, let him ask. You come.
So,
yeah, now go ahead.
I have a question with Professor Vaidyanathan. Sir, according to you, according to you, what is the course of today's Indian economy? That is in the context that dispossessing the farmer of his irrigated land without his consent, giving them to the so-called mantra of FDI and FII in the name of Make in India. So, in the so-called second reforms, so in this context, the agriculture, which is considered to be the backbone of Indian economy, so is it not at stake? So what according to you? So that is, you spoke about little entrepreneur. What about the farmer? And so that's it. So in this context.
I agree with you, that's all. Debate on this, right? I don't think there is a need for any major debate on it, right? Farmers are as much ill-treated as the different categories we were indicating. I didn't focus on that, right?
Can I request Mr. Rajiv Lochin to propose a vote of thanks?
It has been a thought-provoking evening. And first off, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our iconic and towering giants on the stage today for not just your presence and participation, but for your candor, for your genuine views, and for provoking a bunch of thoughts in all of us. I certainly walk away both inspired, but also burdened a little bit with the journey ahead for all of us over the next couple of decades, which will be a period of prosperity for India, but also will require enormous courage from all of us to ask the difficult questions that need to be asked, to have an honest discussion and debate amongst all of us. And I'm delighted that the gracious and learned citizens of Chennai have come out and participated in this event, and I thank you all for your presence and participation here. Sastra University, and in particular Dr. Vaidyanathan, thank you so much for organizing this event. And I would very much welcome the opportunity for this not to be an annual event, but perhaps a quarterly event, so that we can have many more such dialogues and debates in an open and honest manner. So thanks again, Sastra University. On behalf of my colleagues at Kasturi & Sons and the Hindu group in particular, we've taken great pride in being India's national voice with a southern accent, and look forward to many more years of being Chennai's voice, being India's voice, and certainly want to thank Sastra University for giving us the opportunity to collaborate on this important initiative. Look forward to the next edition very shortly. Thanks again, and have a good evening ahead.